Well, like many celebrities, my first guest is heavily involved in politics, but not many in Hollywood are as well read as he is when it comes to knowledge of the political world. He wants to make sure that voters know how the government actually works before they decide who runs it. You can currently see him as Vice President Dick Cheney in the movie W. Please welcome Academy Award-winning actor Richard Dreyfuss. Richard, we knew it all along, and now your Fox tag even affirms it.
I came in and I said Richard Dreyfuss, and they said, here, stud. What can I say?
Richard, great to see you. Welcome.
How are you?
So happy to have you here. I'll even let you have a seat. How's that?
Excellent.
Now keep that card, because you never know when that's going to come in handy.
Especially on this network.
Always on this network. We're delighted to have you. You have recently played the role of Dick Cheney in the movie W. When we visited a couple of weeks ago, you told me that I would be surprised by the movie, and I was, mainly because it did present George W. Bush in a much more sympathetic role, I think, than I had anticipated. But the real question for you, you played Vice President Cheney. It seems like you've played a lot of Republicans through the years, Alexander Haig, different ones. Does this mean you're voting for John McCain next week?
No.
Okay, well, I didn't think so. I knew that would be out of character for Richard Dreyfuss to do that.
Damn right.
But let me ask you this. I know that you have been very involved in politics, but not just from the standpoint of an activist. Recently, you've really become very focused on the issue of civics and the lack of preparation that many students have coming up in our system. What was it that made you say, we've got a problem in this country and people don't know what their government's all about?
First of all, I want you to know that Mike is the only guy I've ever met who we met last week and just chatted and just got to know each other. And we disagree on a lot of stuff, but as my associate said that day, you know, you two guys are getting along so well that if something really tough came along, you wouldn't be so friendly. And Mike said, no, we would disagree, but we would be civil. And that is why I'm here. There's a guy on the network, Bill O'Reilly, who the other day called me a pinhead. And he called me a pinhead because I asked for 3 minutes where he wouldn't interrupt me. And he called me a pinhead. So I'm a pinhead. And he's a civilized human being.
Well, I don't think you're a pinhead. In fact, one of the reasons I wanted to have you in this show, because I do think that you've gone from what you yourself have called a partisan role to a pre-partisan role, to focus on not so much the outcome of issues, but how do we get there, the process that leads to that.
I think that if Fox announced right now that the AMA had changed its policy and said that they no longer were going to vet doctors, and that their new phrase was, if you want to be a neurosurgeon, be a neurosurgeon. That's what we do with this country. It's like people come on a 747 and the pilot, and there's no pilot, and the passenger in A3 is chosen to pilot the plane. This is the greatest system of governance ever created. It's the only one that requires some involvement of the civic body. The only one. It is the best answer to the question, how can people live together in some sense of decency and freedom and opportunity and mobility? There's never been a better answer than the United States. We don't know that anymore. We don't teach it to our children. We wouldn't know the whys and wherefores of how we got here and why, then we would know a snowflake from a Chevy. And the rest of the world does. That's why they come here. There's a curse that mankind has lived with for 12,000 years. And it's known so well that nobody ever has to talk about it. And the curse is that you and yours will never rise. You are a serf, and your children and grandchildren will be serfs, and my heel will always be on your neck until America said, wait a minute, if you can get here, if you can take the stuff that life throws at you, if you work hard and are lucky, you might rise. And that's the most important political message in 12,000 years. And we don't teach it. We are a country bound not by any common ancestry, religion, location, people, sect, place. We are bound only by ideas. And if you don't teach those ideas, we are not bound.
How do we get there, Richard? How do we get to the place where people, well, let's specifically talk about students, because that's what we have to be worried about. Does the next generation understand what an incredible gift they have when they have citizenship in this country? And how do we get them to appreciate that?
It's my opinion, and I went to Oxford for 3 years to study for this, that you have to make people, kids, fall in love with America and fall in love with the America of ideas, because America is the thriller, the suspense novel, victory of light over dark. When dark, the stats are usually 98 dark, light 2. And in the history of mankind, light has won very few times. And we are the actualization of what is called the Enlightenment, when reason and logic and scientific deduction and intelligence was considered better than faith and hope and zealotry. It was a window that opened and is closing. And its enemy is the darkness. The darkness means that sooner or later, thinking makes your head hurt. And that is true of all of us. And we do not train sovereigns to be the future how to be a sovereign, how to explore the substance of an issue, how to know the difference between a guy who has his own interests whispering in your ear, how to reason, how to have logic, how to do basic things that we must have now, because we have technologies that literally have removed time from decision-making. When Philip of Spain insulted Queen Elizabeth, it took her 3 weeks to find out about it. And it took her 6 weeks or more to craft her answer. Now, we see the towers fall in the same nanosecond as our worst enemy. We don't know why they did it, who they are, what's up, what's going on. We're not told anything. But we are in a state of terror, fear. And if we are corralled by the wrong people, we can make the wrong decision. And when I say that time has been removed, science has discovered that the brain is literally creating new neuron paths to overcome this problem. Because it used to be, and for 12,000 years, you had time to think things through. And certain things like going to war and having your son die meant an enormous effort and strain on a nation. You had to sustain hatred, you had to move armies, you had to train them, and you had to kill them. That took a lot. Now, it takes that. And there's no time for error.
Richard, let me ask you about one of the things you've talked about. We've got to study this, so the head is a part of it. What are the hands? Our time is getting away from us, so I've got to move quickly. But I want to ask you, what about national service? Is that a part of helping a new generation understand that they have something invested, that they actually have skin in the game? Would that help us?
It would help, but it's not the answer. And the real enemy here is time. You're saying we only have a limited amount of time.
Always, yeah.
Cavuto on this network said to me the other day, you're so complex. And I said, nah, I'm as complex as America is. And it takes time. And don't think that answers should be given in sound bites. Sound bites are your enemy. Sound bites don't let you think. They impose a phrase. And there are a terrible, damaging thing. The fact that TV is designed for that and has to, has imperatives, does not help the situation.
That's one of the things I think that's very frustrating to all of us in television. Richard, thank you very much. I appreciate you. It's a pleasure to have you here. Richard Dreyfuss. And we hope to have Richard back sometime because obviously there's a lot more to talk about. He is not a fan of organized religion, and in his recent film,